the capitalist scene. So those, I think, are the possibilities. And then as for the power of fiction in one story, well, this is a painful question for me right now, since I am actually trying to write that story right now, and I could answer you, no, it's not possible. And yet, it's worth trying, and you get something that maybe isn't a novel, but the thing is, the novel is such a capacious form. I'm really thinking mostly as a novelist now, not just a storyteller of the other kinds, which are very valuable, and maybe theater is a good place, or movies, to reach more people. But in terms of the novel, well, it's got a long history of taking on an enormous amount of non-dramatic scene baggage of one sort or another and incorporating it into the novel. History into the novel is something that modernism got away from a little bit, and now we're in, thank God, postmodernism or the Anthropocene, so the historical novel comes back. And it's worth trying to tell that story. And so I do it. I'm going to give it another try and then collapse and watch younger writers give it a try. And the failure of my book will be an example for others. It will not be the Shakespeare of future history novels, that's for damn sure. But it's worth trying to get all these factors in. That's a story that should be told more often. And it would be the perfect rebuttal to, if I may say so, Amitav Ghosh and his great derangement, his put down of science fiction, that there's nothing but literary fiction that matters. In other words, his attenuated tiny little genre is the only one that counts because of Knopf and the award system that he's all locked into. That class division in literature itself is such that us poor, working class commercial novelists don't rate in the Amitav Ghosh system, but he's writing a stupidly confined kind of a novel. And so of course he feels stuck. And of course he feels that the novel can't speak to climate change and that there's a great derangement. But the novel's bigger than Ghosh's conception of the novel, and it has to be tried by more people. And a lot of times they come out of science fiction, thank God. And then lastly, well, the industrial workers and oil workers in particular, well, oil workers, there aren't that many of them, but of course, everybody displaced by getting to more biosphere-friendly work could be put to work doing biosphere-friendly work. So in other words, what you do in the oil industry could be usefully applied, as I pointed out, to water pumping. Probably we need to put seawater in the dry basins of the earth, like where Burning Man is, and the Taklamakan Basin, and the dry basins of North Africa and in Central Asia, rehydrating the Aral Sea, stabilizing sea level. It's a pumping problem. It's actually exactly what pipelines in the oil industry does already, with a slightly more viscous and friendly substance, which is water itself. So, but that's just one example of a larger situation. Because, and I end with this, science fiction is, there's a lot of science fiction thinking that goes on in our culture, and there's talk about the full automation, the no necessity for workers anymore, that everything's going to be roboticized. This is so silly on the face of it that it amazes me that it gets traction in this culture, but it just shows what a fantasy world American culture is in. Of course you cannot even roboticize a plumber, much less a child care worker or a gardener. Nothing's amenable to roboticization except for internal factory work that does the same thing over and over again, that isn't really human work anyway, but is humans being used as the parts of a machine. So it wasn't good work to begin with. And if it changes and those people have to become, well, taking care of old people or being registered nurses or physician's assistants or child care workers or kindergarten teachers, that would be better than the industrial jobs that they had before, particularly if it was paid equally to what they had before. So they were getting paid extra because they were being used as machine parts. And there's a certain pride in being tough. There's a kind of a patriarchal masculinist thing of, well, I'm tough, I can be used as a bolt for my entire life, and I'm still tough. That's part of that white person, I'll go down in flames. I'm broke, but I'm patriotic. Pride and dignity, these are crucial, and they need to be maintained. But this is a structure of feeling. Raymond Williams, maybe the structure of feeling of our time needs to change. And sometimes structures of feelings do change pretty rapidly by the work of groups like this one here, talking to everybody else that they know that is in some previous structure of feeling. The next structure of feeling will make our culture look bizarre, just like the Victorian culture looks bizarre from our structure of feeling, and so on and so forth, going backwards. So in a structure of feeling where human work is valued and has dignity, then, well, an industrial worker, you would say, was somewhat like your cotton slave labor, you know, these poor people, they were doing inhuman work because they had to, and they were proud of it, being good at it, but there's better ways to spend your time. So this is the long revolution. I mean, I keep coming back to Raymond Williams because he was awfully good on these things. The long revolution has been happening for a while, and now it needs to get fast. So the great Martin Luther King quote that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. Well, okay, but now it has to be short. Just out of imperative to stay alive on the planet. And so bending that arc as fast as we have to bend it is scary work. But you've come from everywhere in order to discuss. Everybody already sees the problem, and then the reason that we discuss is to kind of create the hope and the solidarity to just go back out there.
Much, Stan. Jason's going to say a few words to wrap us up.
All right,
and then we'll have dinner.
All right, I'll keep this really short and sweet because I know everyone's been working really hard for the past 3 days. And I just wanted to take the moment to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you to Chantal and Violetta and Diana and Andre and all the amazing students here who've been filming and everything. It's so extraordinary, a labor of love. To be sure, socialist or communist unpaid work, anarchist unpaid work, not unpaid work under the boutielle of capital. And I think that these convergences work not because we all agree, we don't, and that's part of what makes it work. I think that one of the things Stan said that just stuck in me is this tendency academics love to do this is to reify, so you can be against or for something, and that means you stop listening. And you stop treating your own thinking, your own work as a work in progress, as an ongoing conversation. And I was thinking about what makes these convergences work, what makes world ecology as a conversation work. And I think that it is precisely that we are coming from so many different experiences, so many different backgrounds as artists, novelists, as academics, as activists, and many of us embody those roles and many, many more. We are willing to listen to each other. What a novel idea. That doesn't happen very often in academic meetings. And so we are also, I think, all misfits in one way or another in the best sense of the term, that we don't fit within the accepted boxes, whether it's a discipline or a certain convention of what it means to be an artist or an activist. And so I wanted to leave by acknowledging that, and that this is a conversation that I think deserves to continue precisely for the reasons that we've talked about. This is a work in progress because I think we do not have the analytics or the political modes and answers or the representational strategies, the storytelling modes